Hey guys, how's it going? This is Khavrion here with yet another battle report video. In this video, it's going to be me, Khavrion, playing Steel Phalanx against Al Espanol playing Capocalchi on Vaulsc's custom mission Oblique Assault 2. This game is for Season 4 of Vaulsc's Tabletop Simulator infiNity League. Let's start off by talking about the mission. This is a rework of Oblique Assault 1, which was also a Vaulsc custom mission, although I think they're pretty much the same things. I'm going to look at the map first. The mission is called Oblique Assault, I believe, because of these three communication antennas that are put in a diagonal or oblique arrangement on the map. And one of the things you have to do is you have to control these communication antennas. So with that picture in mind, let's go ahead and look at the scoring. So in Oblique Assault 2, you have to get 1 point per communication antenna that you control with specialist troopers at the end of the game. And what this means is you have to have specialist troopers in silhouette contact with the antennas, and the enemy cannot have anybody else in contact with those antennas. A non-specialist can dispute control, but it can't control it itself. So that's 3 points there. There's 1 point for killing the designated target, pretty straightforward. And then there's 6 points wrapped up in army kills. The way that it's wrapped up is a little bit complicated, and I'm not sure that it's my favorite thing, but let's go ahead and look at the breakdown. You get 2 objective points if you kill between 0 and 50 points more than your adversary. So basically, if you somehow kill exactly the same number, or if you have an advantage, you're getting at least 2 points for having more kills. And then for every 50 points above that, you're getting another point. So if you kill 51 to 100, that's 3 objective points. 101 to 150, that's 4. All the way up to if you get 201 points more killed than your adversary, that's a total of 6 objective points. Now let's stop and make sure that we understand what's going on here. This isn't actually like Annihilation, where you get points for absolute kills. Instead, you're getting points for relative kills. It's not killing 50 points of the enemy that gets you points. It's killing 50 more points than what they killed of yours. What that means is that scoring lots of points off of army kills is actually kind of tricky, because not only do you have to get lots of kills, you have to make sure that your own troopers aren't dying a lot either. Now, I'm not necessarily commenting on my opinions on this specifically. I'm not a huge fan of how this is broken down, but I'll save that for another video. The important part for this one is that it means that getting kills and how many points are associated with that is a little bit trickier than you'd expect. And what that means is that adopting a strategy in which you intend to play defensively, in which you maybe want to go second, I don't know if you would go straight for second, but maybe choose deployment, and then try to control the communication antennas at the end. Adopting that kind of strategy is something that I believe is a little bit more favorable because of how hard it is to try to get these army kills. Next, let's talk about the lists. Before diving into the lists, I want to bring up that in this particular league, Vaulsc has brought back the limited insertion order group protection that was present in previous seasons of infiNity. Specifically, if you're playing a single combat group, which I will be doing, your opponent cannot spend a command token to remove 2 of your orders on the first turn of the game. So, no surprises, I am running a limited insertion list. I didn't actually create this one. I saw it from someone else, XNed, who was playing it, but I saw the list and I thought, wow, that's fantastic, and I started running it and I had a really great time. So this list is basically the all-stars of the Steel Phalanx. You have Achilles right here. You also have, then you have the standard Inomotarchos here of Akmon, Machaon, Phoenix, and Ajax. That's a fantastic Inomotarchos. It's one of my favorite. You have Hector, and then backing that up, you have 2 net rods and 2 Lamed flashbots. So there's a bunch of things I like about this list. 1, it's really tough. Every single one of these dudes, except I guess maybe Akmon, but he still has 2 wounds, has a ton of armor, or NWI, or Mimetism -6, or smoke or eclipse grenades, etc. 2, it's got a ton of orders. If you count in Akmon's Tactical Awareness and Hector's Strategos level 2 with the +1 order, you've got 13 orders that you can throw into stuff. With the limited insertion protection, you can launch a huge alpha. 3, this list is actually startlingly flexible. Akmon can go into the Inomotarchos with Machaon, Phoenix, and Ajax, or he can pair up with Achilles. So if you don't want to commit with your Inomotarchos, you can have Achilles and Akmon run off, and Akmon can deal with the hackers. Akmon can undo any isolation that happens with Achilles, and he's, of course, got the Tactical Awareness. And then you can kind of dispose of Achilles. and he can do lots of damage, and you've still got your main group left behind. Alternatively, you can fling the Anomatarchos forward and have Achilles and Hector in a duo. And even if the entire Anomatarchos dies, you still have 8 orders to use on that Achilles and Hector duo. Now, of course, you don't want them to die, but if you spend them and force your opponent to hack through these really tough guys, it can be really useful to then follow that up by having 8 orders to spend on Achilles, who is fantastic. Finally, and the thing that I really like about this is you've only got 10 models. You could just cram into a corner and completely cede half of your own deployment zone, and then hide behind the really tough ARO pieces like Ajax and Phoenix. Hector's really good too. And what that means is that you're startlingly defensive in a faction that normally just doesn't have a lot of midfield presence at the start of the game. So I really like this list. I'm really glad that I was able to steal it from somebody else who I saw playing, and I've been really enjoying it. I'm not sure how it would be without that limited insertion protection. 2 orders may not seem like a lot, but if you think about it, you've got to spend like 4 or 5 orders moving across the field just to get into good range to start killing people, especially if you have to throw smoke. So losing 2 orders because the enemy used a command token on you, so now you've got only 11, means that you're basically losing 2 kills that you probably would have gotten, and that's kind of a big deal. So I don't know that I would run this except in an ally protection type format. Maybe I would. I don't know. Food for thought. And let's go ahead and look at my opponent's list. So my opponent was gracious enough to go ahead and send this over to me. I don't think that this is set up in terms of how they were grouped together, but basically what you can see is that there's a lot of Jan Bazans sitting around with machine guns and EP sniper rifles, and it's backed up by Odalisques and Sekban and Havzas. And then in group 2, there's just 2 flash pulse bots with 3 Yuan-Yuans. Now, I don't really have a lot of opinions about Kapukaki. I haven't thought about them. People say they're not as strong as they used to be. I'm not sure about that. But I think one thing that you can say is that when you're looking at this, it does have a fair bit of flexibility. There's a lot of wild cards with the Sekban and with the Havza. And on top of that, the Sekban has NCO, so there's some order efficiency. And then the Jan Bazans may not be the best shooters. They're only BS-12, but they do have MSV2. They've got decent enough guns. So I don't think that this is an inherently flawed list. I don't think that this is, just looking at this immediately that we're looking at something that's just, it's weak, it could never win or anything like that. That said, I do want to point out that there really aren't that many good AP options. You're basically looking at the AP sniper rifles associated with the Jan Bazans and the AP rifle on the Sekban. And those might be nice if you're trying to shoot at, I don't know, a tag or something like that. But the Burst 3 is really just not going to be able to chew through Ajax specifically, but also Hector, I suppose, with the level of efficiency that you kind of need in order to be able to, get Ajax down and then take out the rest of the link. The only other thing that's worth pointing out is that Kapukaki has these Havzas who can holomask. And I think the strength of the Havza as a holomask really depends on how much your opponent isn't expecting it. And I had forgotten about the Havzas until probably the start of my turn. I don't exactly remember when I remembered that the Havzas were there, but as soon as I remembered that the Havzas were there, I was able to adjust how I was playing so that they would never be able to surprise splash me with a rocket launcher or something like that. And I think that that really limits their ability to be surprising and useful. So in your experience, if you're running Kapukaki, the Havzas may be able to surprise your opponent and get a kill or template something, and that'd be really cool. But aside from that, the problem is that they're just, if your opponent is aware of them and playing appropriately, their ability to inflict damage is dramatically reduced. Still, 17 points and 1.5 SWC for a rocket launcher that can be core linked isn't terrible. Just something to think about. The other thing to think about is the Yuan-Yuans. So, I don't really know exactly how these are supposed to work, but my understanding is that the way that Yuan-Yuans work now is that you basically can't use your irregular order on the turn that you enter the board. So if you enter the board with your impetuous order, you combat drop, you can't use that irregular order to go kill something. So what that means is that the Yuan-Yuans, in my opinion, are dramatically reduced in terms of their ability to basically get work done. I remember in late N3, the Yuan-Yuans would drop, and then you spend their irregular order trading with something, and they'd have a chain rifle or smoke or something like that, and that'd be really cool. But I don't know, they just don't seem like they're able to do that anymore. Maybe this game wasn't that representative of their skill. If you think that Yuan Yuans are good and I'm missing something, feel free to let me know. But for now, I am kind of thinking that I wasn't super impressed with the Yuan Yuans this game. And it really just boils down to how inefficient it is to get them on the board. And they've got to stay on the board if they actually want to do anything. All right, let's go ahead and start actually looking at the game. So here's the map. In my opinion, it's very classically Vaulsc. First and foremost, it looks great. I guess it's kind of like a town. People have been driving. I really like the way that he uses lighting. To me, I feel like playing on a pretty table really enhances my experience, and a lot of thought has gone into making this table look pretty, and I really appreciate that. Aside from that, this table actually has more up-down firing lanes than Vol's normal maps. You've got a fairly long firing lane this way. You get some fairly long firing lanes this way and this way. But even so, the left-right firing lanes tend to be better than the DZ to DZ firing lanes. So this firing lane, and I think there's one over here. Those tend to be more favored than the DZ to DZ firing lanes. And that's sort of Vol's style, which I've come to expect. So let's get started with the game. I win the willpower roll for the lieutenant, and I choose deployment zones. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, I think the mission mildly favors going second, so I don't mind stacking the deck in my favor in that regard. If my opponent wants to go straight for second, I am A-okay with that, by the way. If they're going to deploy first and then go second, I will take advantage of that. But if it's all else being equal, I'm thinking I can defend. Second, I really like this deployment zone in particular. I'm thinking that I can bunker up with my limited insertion list and just be, unassailable, really just hide everything in here and force my opponent to go through my big aero pieces before they can actually get access to anything else. And I can carefully watch for Yuan Yuans. I'm thinking this is a good strategy, and I think it does pay off. And here is my opponent's deployment. He has withheld a Jan Bazan AP Sniper. I think he withheld this Jan Bazan AP Sniper. I don't exactly remember what the models are, but I'm going to go ahead and take you through it, what I can remember. There's the Jan Bazan AP Sniper there, a Yuan Yuan that was put on the board, Fanus. I believe this is Rahman Rouhani, but it's actually his Havza lieutenant in disguise. I think this is a Jan Bazan HMG. I think this is a Jan Bazan with a shock marksman rifle, Jan Bazan sniper, Jan Bazan HMG, Odalisque. One of these two is a Havza. This is a sec band doctor. They have NCO. I actually kind of like the profile these days, and this is a sec band specialist. Still has NCO as well. So we're basically looking at 10 orders in Group 1, 2 regular orders in Yuan Yuan in Group 2, and I'm strongly suspecting that the other 2 missing slots are Yuan Yuans. And spoiler, they are. You've already seen the lists, but they actually aren't really going to show up much during this game. So here's my deployment. I am deploying defensively. I have my net rods here and here. They both made the drop. They're both hiding behind walls that are taller than they are, so very, very safely deployed. I have my Lameds here and here. There's the flash pulse bots. They're watching for Yuan Yuans. And I'm bunkered up inside here as well. I have Akmon, Machaon, Phoenix, and Ajax sitting up like that. Ajax is watching to here, and he also has something of an arrow out that way. I don't exactly remember where it ends. And then I've got Phoenix over here, who is watching a similar line all the way over to here. And my thinking is that, he's deployed his stuff over there, which means that if he wants to get into a long-range gunfight, he's got to come all the way over here. Then my withheld pieces are Hector and Achilles. Strategos level 2 gives me 2 of these guys, and I'm using Achilles as an aero piece. I originally had him put over there, but then I was worried about the long-range line of fire, so I moved him to here. That proved out to be dumb. He's going to get himself killed. But even so, I really like using Achilles as an aero piece. He's really tough. He's got a lot of armor. He's got forward deployment, which is pretty rare in Steel Phalanx. And he, in my experience anyway, he tends to warp the minds of people that you're playing against. A lot of people see Achilles and think, I gotta go kill that guy immediately. And if my opponent spends his entire turn killing Achilles, or if he wastes like 5 or 6 orders out of Group 1 putting shots into Achilles, that's fine. I'm A-okay with that. I've still got a ton of orders and a link that's really, really tough. On the other hand, it's very easy for me to imagine that my opponent is going to run up with some regular HMG and start blasting at Achilles, and maybe he takes a wound and is able to guts to safety, and the guy squanders orders, not actually making any progress. So here I'm using Achilles as an aero piece. I have in a fire team duo with Hector so that if he does injure something, he doesn't get frenzied. And that's how I like to use Achilles in general. In specific, I've misplaced him. I was worried about this long-range arrow here, and it's going to get him killed. But in general, I don't think that that necessarily diminishes his quality. Oh, one last thing I do want to mention is that Hector is very much an active arrow piece in this list. You got to be careful about what you're exposing him to, but he is just as tough as Ajax. And he needs to sit there, and he's got his plasma rifle, which has a template, and more importantly, he's got armor 5, 2 wounds, and NWI, so if somebody does decide to go through, they're going to shoot him, he can guts to safety, he can soak up orders that way. And that really is a theme about this list. It's really good at soaking up punishment and not diminishing its ability to hit back. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and look at what's going to happen for turn 1. So this is my opponent's deployment, and I'm just going to kind of talk about what happens here. So the first thing that he's going to do is he's going to have this Yuan Yuan basically run out this way and throw smoke right here. And then what he's going to do is he's going to take this core with the HMG, and it's going to run over here, and it's going to see Achilles, who's was hiding from this lane, but is exposed from this lane, and that's going to get Achilles shot. So that's what my opponent is thinking. He's going to take his link, he's going to run over that way and do some damage. So he's able to get over there. He runs there. I think he misjudges the length of the smoke the first time and fails, but he's got plenty of orders and is able to get smoked down the second time. This is the line that he's going for, and as we can see, Achilles isn't even in cover. There's really not much I can do to keep him safe from this attack. I really just should have put him behind the car, but you win some, you lose some. That said, this is a picture from like midway through. I'm still not terribly bothered by this outcome. My opponent has to spend like 4 orders hustling from his original position, over here, all the way over to here before he can even start shooting at Achilles. Yes, Achilles is out of cover, but it's going to cost him orders just walking all the way over there, and Achilles is tough. He's still got armor 6. He's still got 3 wounds, and it might take multiple orders to shoot him. It doesn't. He gets shot. He goes down in 1 order. He's unconscious, but it still is something that is not necessarily all that bad for me. A lot of orders have gone into getting around here and flanking Achilles, so I don't mind overwhelmingly this position. It's not a huge blunder on my part. That said, it is a little bit of a blunder. This guy gets to that position and he blasts Achilles. I think my opponent gets like 5 hits and I miss my dodge, and then I fail 3 out of the 5, which isn't that unlikely, and Achilles does go unconscious in 1 order. After that, my opponent hustles up. Phoenix can see over here at some point, but first he's going to take care of my designated target. It's pistol range, so this isn't actually all that great. I've got the guy out of cover too, so he's shooting like 3 dice on 15s, and I'm 1 die on an 11, but he's using a pistol, so I could tank it. It doesn't work out that. I go unconscious, but I'm not dead, and it has soaked up yet more orders. The other thing that's worth noting is that my opponent is a little bit worried about the spacing here. He's worried that he's too close. So he wants to engage Phoenix, who's over there, but he wants to make sure that I'm not going to hit him with rocket launchers and then get templated. And that actually turns out to be a pretty wise decision because my opponent shoots at Phoenix. I crit. My opponent also crits, but nobody else is in range of the blast zone, so it doesn't kill the guy. At that point, he's realizing he's kind of low on orders, so what he basically does is he uses the sec band to pull back. The sec band has the NCO order, and he also shoots at Achilles, kills Achilles. He tries to kill my designated target, fails. Pistols just aren't that good. I think I tank all 3 saves, but I'm not going to resurrect the designated target anyway, so that's sort of just an order spent shuffling around, and he ends up with this defensive position. Now, quite frankly, I think this defensive position is mistake number 2 as far as I'm concerned with respect to my opponent. I think mistake number 1 was how many orders it took to come over here, and really he's just taking out Achilles. But this is mistake number 2. The problem is that Jan Bazan's thing, what they mostly are, is they're mostly an MSV unit, and they need to be on arrow. And as it stands, the only arrow piece that's really there is this guy, and all he's really seeing is this lane. He is not seeing this lane. So I'm going to have to throw a little bit of eclipse smoke, but not all that much eclipse smoke in order to get up there. If, on the other hand, he had maybe the Jan Bazan HMG here standing up, or even here standing up, that would have been that much harder for me to get close to him. I only have Phoenix in terms of long-range guns, and he relies very heavily on his Mimetism -6. So if I were shooting at these HMGs with Phoenix, I might not even do that. But even if I do, I'm like burst 3 on 13s versus his burst 2 on 15s. That's not great odds. That's not something I'm excited about. And so I'm either taking those bad odds or I'm throwing Eclipse Smoke in order to make my advance. And in either way, I think my opponent could have deployed better by having this Link team in a more defensive position. I think the other thing that's worth noting is it turns out this Havza is the rocket launcher guy, and it's just not going to matter. That rocket launcher isn't going to do anything. Um, I also know that it's there, so it's not like I'm going to expose myself to risk. But even so, it's just not going to do all that much. It could be that he's trying to keep it safe for a later turn. I'm not really sure, but I think the Havza really could have afforded to be standing up and be a little bit more aggressive, and it just wasn't. Okay, so that's my turn. I have lost Achilles, and that's about it. So between the 9 orders, plus 2 from Hector Strategos level 2, plus Akmon, I'm sitting pretty at 12 orders. Not only that, from this position, we can also really see what I was talking about earlier about the long-range arrows. It's basically just the Jan Bazan sniper here who is seeing that lane. That's really all that's going on. So I will have to put Eclipse Smoke right there in order for Ajax to be able to advance, but that's it. Hindsight's 50-50, but maybe this Jamdazan Harris could have moved out and put down some long-range arrows down these lanes and forced me to throw smoke, and that might have slowed me down a little bit. Anyway, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to take this Nomatarkos, I'm going to throw smoke here to unlock Ajax, then I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to basically waste this team. I'll end up here to kill the Janbazan, then I will come over here and I will kill the Sekban and I will kill the Janbazan HMG. I try to engage there's a flashpulse bot there that has this line of fire. I actually get stunned with Phoenix shooting at it. That's a little bit unlucky, but it doesn't really matter. I'd hoped to put some templates on those guys and splash both, but it turns out not to be super important. I'm able to move Ajax up to here and just shoot everything. And ultimately, the takeaway message I think on this one is that Ajax, with his burst 5, with his huge armor, with his nanopulsers, because he's got burst 3 nanopulsers with +1 damage, is really just able to do so much damage in the active turn, and he's backed up by 12 orders with which to do it. Yeah. I really think that the only thing, aside from the arrows, that would have slowed me down here is if my opponent had spent more orders just kind of backing off. Instead of going for shots on Phoenix, if my opponent had spent orders backing off, it would have taken me just a little bit longer to get over there, and that meant I would have done a little bit less damage, and that means that when it comes time for him to have his turn, I'm a little bit more exposed, and he has a little bit more orders. But even so, I've got a full order pool. I've got this Noble Targus, which is excellent, and in a lot of ways, that's the story. So I think this is pretty much where I end up. The Havza is still alive there. The Flash Pulse bot is still alive there. I've reformed the link on Akmon because I think he's the safest. Ajax is presenting an arrow so that I can stop anything that's coming from that direction. If they do get to this corner, they are going to have to shoot at Machaon, who's got his Eclipse grenades, and if they get through him, they've got to shoot at Phoenix, who guts to safety behind this building. I don't love McCown's position there. If they're shooting burst 5 on 15s and I'm shooting burst 2 on 16s with my Eclipse Smoke, that could go badly, and I don't have anybody guts to total cover, but even so, I'm thinking this is a fairly solid defensive position. McCown being a little bit exposed is really the only thing that troubles me, and the reason that I've done that is because I'm just worried that this Havza with his rocket launcher is going to shoot someone. I don't want to mess around with that. I'd rather be careful, so I've fanned out a little bit more, which means that McCown's in a little bit of a worse position. And here's how we start. It turns out that McCown's worst position isn't necessarily going to be that big of a deal. What's essentially going to happen is this Harris is going to activate. It's going to move into here. We're going to form up into a core with this guy and this guy. In the meantime, this Yuan, who is run over there, is going to come around this corner and throw smoke. So we're going to have smoke here, and then we're going to have a fully linked Jamdazan HMG come over here, and it's going to shoot at Ajax. And that's pretty much what happens. Now, it turns out that this range from Ajax to this Janbazan is 14.5 inches, which means that I'm in my good range and he's in his 0 range. So I'm on 13s and he is on 12s. And the second thing that happens is that I win the face-to-face roll 2 or 3 times. Now, the first time or 2 or something like that, he ends up tanking a lot of the hits, but he also does go unconscious. And this is where the dice are kind of not being all that favorable. He is able to use the Sekban NCO to revive the Janbazan and keep shooting, but it does cost orders that he might be using to reposition elsewhere. But the primary problem here is not really the fact that my opponent is getting unlucky. It's not even really the fact that this engagement is happening inside my good range and outside of his. In my opinion, the problem right now is that my opponent is using the wrong tool for the job. First, he's using MSV2 plus Smoke, but I'm in a 4-man link. I have 6 Sense. I don't care about that -6 penalty because it's not imposed upon me. 2, he's just using a regular HMG against Ajax. Sure, it's core linked. Sure, it's got MSV2, so you ignore Ajax's mimetism. But I'm armor 5, I'm in cover, I've got 2 wounds in NWI, and I can fail guts to safety, and I'm not even that expensive. I'm not even that crucial. Fundamentally, Ajax is my go-to gunner, but if he dies, I can use Machaon, I can use Akmon, I can go over here and get Hector. Losing Ajax just isn't that important, and the tool that we're applying against him, this HMG, is not that favorable either. Now, at this point in the matchup, I'm not sure that there's a better thing for my opponent to be doing against Ajax. Maybe choosing a different target would be better. You know, we've discussed coming around here to shoot at Machaon, but, you know, we didn't realize that in the moment. And 2, you know, the HMG against Ajax isn't a poor way to try to put some wounds on the guy. But ultimately, it's something that I had offered. I am A-okay with this. I like using Ajax in this capacity, and he's doing a great job at just soaking up orders, and that's pretty much what happens. And yeah, in fact, the fact that it costs so many orders, the fact that I put the guy unconscious too, costing the NCO order off the Sackman, does mean that the position at the end of the turn is really quite perilous. We have the Janbazan HMG is just sitting there in the open. That's as far as it could get to retain the core link. This Rouhani here is actually a Habza. It's barely, you know, in coherency. This is, I think, the Janbazan sniper. It really can't see all that much. Janbazan marksman rifle. He's doing okay. Sackban, etc. But, you know, this link is very exposed, and I'm right here. So my turn, pretty much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this link and apply it to his link. I still have 12 orders. And, you know, no surprises, but it ends up being very effective for me. I am able to basically take out everybody with really no great concerns. This, I think, is where we end up. I think the Yuan dodged around the corner and was able to put a chain rifle that injured Akmon and injured Ajax. But again, you know, my dudes are so tough that I don't really mind taking that injury in order to solve the final problem of that Yuan. That was the end of turn 2. But it is pretty much over. Even so, I want to give my opponent a lot of credit for sportsmanship here. He's sitting at a Thanos and 2 off the board Yuan. The Yuan are actually in the wrong group. He had moved the Thanos over, so the Yuan really can't do anything except drop and hope to be annoying. But to give my opponent credit, he is thinking about what he can do. He tries to drop the Yuan here, and maybe they're going to be able to chain rifle something. I don't think that they make their drop or something like that, so it doesn't turn out to matter. But my opponent is still thinking, you know, how can I get ahead? How can I, you know, make my life difficult? My life is the opponent, and I really want to give them props to that. I'm not sure that I would have the you know, the energy to do that at this stage in the game, but we don't call it, we do play it out, and that's super cool. That said, it is pretty much over. I basically take Ajax and I berserk the designated target, killing it outright, and then I take Machaon and run over here to be in contact with this console. So I'm in contact with 2 consoles. I have killed pretty much my entire opponent's army, and I have lost Achilles, and that's about it. So I am able to pull a 9-1 victory. I leave my designated target unconscious over there. I don't get the last console because I only brought 2 specialists in the first place. But ultimately, this is a wrap. So that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys watching so far. I do want to talk a little bit about style here. I'm trying to include more analysis in these videos and give less of a blow-by-blow. I appreciate your comments on how well I'm doing at that. If you think more analysis would be good, let me know. If you think these videos are getting long, also let me know. And otherwise, thanks for watching.